GitLab CI/CD course. In this course, you will learn everything you need to know to start creating CI/CD pipelines and automating your application deployment using GitLab. Throughout the course, we will be learning all important GitLab topics through hands-on experience. So I've created practical examples where we set up CI/CD pipelines for Node.js application, for Python application, set up our own runners, and I try to explain all the topics through hands-on with very less theory and no PPTs to bore you off. So I hope you enjoy this course and master GitLab after watching it. One important request before we start the course: if you are watching this course and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe to the channel. It takes a huge amount of effort and time to create videos like this. So please subscribe. Most of you watch the videos but don't actually subscribe. So please subscribe to the channel and let's start with the course. Okay, we are all set to start with our GitLab CI/CD course. But if you are new to GitLab, there are a few prerequisites or some prior knowledge that you need to know in order to understand this course completely. The first thing is you should be familiar with Git and also know some important Git commands that you can learn from this particular video. Along with this, you also need to know what is CI/CD, what are CI/CD pipelines, what is continuous integration, what is continuous deployment, and you can learn all of that from this particular video. You need to know this. With that being said, let's start with our GitLab CI/CD course. Let's start with the question, what is GitLab? And to answer this in a simple way, GitLab is a DevOps platform that provides you with so many features, including version control system, CI/CD, security, container registry, and so much more that we are going to be learning in this particular GitLab course. So in order to use all these features or to use GitLab, you need to have a GitLab account, and you can create a GitLab account using your email ID or using GitHub or Bitbucket or Salesforce. I already have my GitLab account created using my GitHub, and I'm going to use that throughout the course. So go ahead with creating your GitLab account, and after you create an account, you also need to verify it or validate it using your credit or debit card so that you can run your pipelines using GitLab's shared runners, and I'll be explaining you what shared runners are in the course. But go ahead with creating an account and also validating it with your credit or debit card. Don't worry, GitLab will not charge or store your card, it will only be used for validation. So go ahead, create an account with GitLab, validate it to get started with creating your first CI/CD pipeline on GitLab. And in case you face issues in account creation or account validation, feel free to let me know in the comment section. But you can also check out the GitLab's documentation, which are very good to solve your issues, or else you can also let me know in the comment section. With that being said, let's start with creating our first CI/CD pipeline on GitLab. Once you have your account ready, this is what you'll be able to see. This is GitLab's home page, and in the project section you'll see all the repositories that you created. For now it's very fresh, so we don't see any projects. Then you can see groups or the projects that you're part of. Then you have issues here, which are the tasks assigned to you, merge request to merge a particular branch, and all the other things that we are going to be exploring throughout this course. So let's start with creating our first CI/CD pipeline after we create our repository. So I'll click on create a project option here. In this, I'll be selecting create a blank project, and let's name our repo as CICD course. So I'll say CICD course. For deployment, we don't have any deployment planned. We'll say no deployment plan, or you can also choose any options here. So I'll say no deployment plan for now. For usability access, let's make this repo as public. And I also want to have a readme, so I'll say initialize repository with the readme. With these settings, I'm going to click on create project, and this will create a repository for me in GitLab that you can see here. So we are inside CI/CD course repo, and to set up CI/CD pipeline for this particular repo, we need to create a file that will hold all the configuration inside it. And I can do that by clicking on setup CI/CD button here, which can make things complex. So to explain you from scratch, I'll click on plus option here, new file, and create a file which will hold all the CI/CD configuration. In GitLab, if you want to create a pipeline which will hold all the CI/CD configuration, it should be named as .gitlab-ci.yml. This is the name you give for the file that will hold CI/CD configuration, because GitLab will understand only if you give the name like this, unless you change the name in the settings. And you can also check the documentation. So if you are new to GitLab CI/CD, start by reviewing some of the commonly used terms. The first is .gitlab.ci.yml file. To use GitLab CI/CD, you start with .gitlab/ci.yml file at the root of your project, which contains the configuration for your CI/CD pipeline. And this pipeline uses YAML, so we are going to be naming our CI/CD file as .gitlab/ci.yml. You can also use different names, but you need to change that in the settings. For now, you should always use .gitlab-ci, only then your CI/CD pipeline will work. Only then GitLab will understand that this is a CI/CD pipeline file. Now inside this file, you will have to create jobs. Job can be of different types depending on what you want to do. Let's create it with a simple build job, which is going to execute a sample script. And to show you that in documentation again, jobs pipeline configuration begins with jobs. Jobs are the most fundamental element of .gitlab-ci.yaml file, and it is used to execute a particular script. So you can see this is job 1, which is executing this script. This is job 2, which is executing this script. Similarly, we are going to create a simple job which will execute a script that will show us a message on our pipeline. So I'll say script, and in this I'll echo a message saying hello from GitLab CI CD course. Okay, this is our CI/CD pipeline configuration. Now I'm going to commit it, and let's see if our pipeline is going to succeed and show us this message or not. So I'm going to scroll down. Let's add a message saying add CI/CD file. Commit changes, and this will be committed to my main branch. Once I commit this, you can also see GitLab will provide you with this validation here if the CI/CD pipeline or configuration is valid or not, if there are any syntax issues or not. Once you do this, you can go to build section and click on pipelines, which will show you if the pipeline is running or not. Right now you can see the status is running. It can be passed, it can be pending, it can be failed. The status can be of different type. Right now it is running, so it's running status. You can also see who has initiated or ran this pipeline. So it's me, which is why it's my name here. And right now we only have a single stage, which is the test stage. By default, all the jobs will run in the test stage, and you can see it says passed. So let's click on this option here, and it will bring you inside this. You can see there is a single job, which is this job here, and it's inside test stage. The job name is build job. Now if I click on this job, I'll get more information about this. So this is where you can see the logs, and let me try to explain you here. So the log has few things. The first thing is it is running on a GitLab Runner. GitLab provides you with few shared runners that you can use, and runner is a machine which executes the scripts that you define in your job. We're going to be learning about runners very soon, so you just need to understand that runners are a machine which execute your script that you define in different jobs. Next, you can see a build has been created using Docker image, which is of Ruby image. So the image used to execute this particular script is Ruby. Next, it is preparing an environment for our job. It is getting the source from repository, executing the script, and lastly we have a message, hello from GitLab CI CD course. This means our job has been succeeded and our pipeline has ran successfully. You can also see more information about the job here. So the job ran for 26 seconds. It has finished in 1 minute. There was no queue. The timeout for this particular job is 1 hour by default. This is the particular runner that is used for this particular job. This is the commit ID which ran the pipeline, and you also see different stages. Right now it's only test, and we are also going to learn about stage and stages very soon. So now we have successfully created a simple CI/CD pipeline, and we have also checked the logs, which explains everything about runner, the image we have used, and also different logs about our job. Now if you want to rerun this particular job, you can just click on this option here which says retry, and if I click on this retry option, it will go ahead and rerun the job. You can see the job is running again. It's in running state right now, and after it is done, it will give me if it is passed or failed. Obviously it will pass because we haven't made any change or there's no error. So this is how you create a simple CI/CD pipeline in GitLab. Going through the course, I'm going to show you how you can change runners, how you can change these images, how you can create complex CI/CD pipelines, and lot more. So let's start with creating a NodeJS application and also setting up CI/CD pipeline for it. So I'm in my VS Code, and I have a simple Node.js application that uses Express as a framework and runs on port 8080 to display a message. This is my Node application for CI/CD demo. As this application uses Express, we also have a dependency for Express 4.16.1 in our package.json. And now we are ready to create a CI/CD pipeline to build and deploy this on GitLab. But before we go ahead and create a CI/CD pipeline, let's try to manually deploy this on our local machine to understand all the steps that we will require to create a CI/CD pipeline. Now if you want to run this application locally, you need to have two things in your machine. First is Node.js, So if you don't have it, you can simply install it by running sudo apt install nodejs -y. Now once I run this, it says Node.js is already installed for me, but you need to install it or else it will not run. Along with Node.js, you also need to have npm installed. npm is a package manager for Node, which installs all the required dependencies. In our case, the dependency is Express. So if I want to run or install the dependencies using npm, I also need to have npm installed. So I'll run sudo apt install npm -y. And it says npm is already installed. Okay, now let's go and run the command npm install. This will install the dependencies inside our package.json, which is required for our app to run. If you don't have this dependency, we will get an error. Let me show you that. So if I run node app.js, it gives me an error saying cannot find module express. So we need to install this module, and we can do that by running npm install command. Once I run this, you can see it starts installing something, and now we have a package-log.json and also a node modules folder which has the dependency inside it. Now if I run the same command, which was node app.js, our application is going to run. An application is listening at this port. Let's open this port, and you can see this is my node application for CICD demo. Alright, now we have an idea of how this application is running, what things are required. So let's go and create a CI/CD pipeline for this. I'm going to create a new file. The file name is going to be .gitlab-ci.yml. Remember, this is the file name you will be using to create a CI/CD pipeline in GitLab. In this CI/CD file, I will create two jobs, the build job and deploy job. Build job is to install all the dependencies required to run this application, and the deploy job to actually run this application. So let's create the first job, which is build job. In this, I'm going to say script. Inside the script, I'm going to run the commands to install all the dependencies. But before installing all the dependencies, let's run the command apt update -y. And to install the dependencies, we use npm install command. But as GitLab uses Ruby image, we are not sure if npm will be installed or not. So I'm going to say apt install npm -y. Now that the npm is installed, let's run the command npm install, which will install express dependencies for this application. Okay, this is our build job. Similarly, I'm going to create a deploy job. So let's say deploy. In this, I will run the commands to actually run the application. So in the script, I'll say apt update -y first. And this application runs using the command node app.js. So before I run the command node app.js, I need to make sure node is installed or not. And as this is a Ruby image, GitLab uses Ruby image to create a build. Node will not be installed. So I'll be running apt install nodejs -y. These are the same commands we ran when we were running this application locally. Now that the nodejs is installed, I'm going to say node app.js command. Now this is our pipeline. Now this is our pipeline configuration, and we can push this to GitLab. But if you see, there are two jobs which are build and deploy, and we don't know which one will be executed first. And to find out, let's push this on GitLab. So to push this code from local machine to GitLab, we first need to create a GitLab repository. So I'm going to click on new project, create blank project. Let's name this as Node.js application, and I'm going to make it public. Initialize the repository with readme and click on create project. Once I do that, I also need to connect my repo with local machine. So I'm going to copy this HTTPS link and run the command git remote set -url origin and the link. Once I do this, I can confirm if my repo is connected using this command. So it's connected and I'm ready to push it. So right now, if I run the command git branch, you'll see I have main branch, and I don't want to push the main branch directly because it's not recommended to push on main branch. You should be instead pushing on feature branch and then merge it. This is a workflow you should be following whenever working in production environments. So I'll create a branch. Let's name it git branch feature branch. Now I'm going to check out to that branch so I can start pushing to it. And if I run the git branch command again, now you can see I'm using feature branch. Alright, let's push all this code. So I'll say git add dot, and if I do git status to confirm if I'm pushing everything or not. Okay, now I'll say git commit -m my app, and then git push -u origin and the name of the branch, which is feature. Alright, if you're confused about these commands, please check out the Git and GitHub video. It will be easy for you to understand because I have explained it more properly. So now after putting my username and password, it will be pushed, and you can check it. Now if I refresh the page, you will be able to see a new branch here, and you also get a message saying that you pushed a feature branch, and right now you can create a merge request. Along with this, we have also pushed the gitlab -ci.yaml file, so the pipeline has been triggered. Now I'm going to click on this pipeline symbol, and you will be able to see two jobs. So there are two jobs here, the build job and the deploy job, as we have defined in our gitlab -ci file. But we don't know which job is going to be executed first. Is it going to be the build job that will be completed first, or is it going to be deploy job? If the deploy job completed first, it will give you an error because build is used to install dependencies that require to run the deploy, and you can see the deploy has been failed. So if I click on this and try to see what was the issue, you can see it gave an error saying cannot find module express. This was the same error that we got because we didn't install the npm dependencies using the npm install command. So if this is the case, how can we solve, or how can we tell GitLab to execute the build job first and then the deploy job first? So you can do this using something known as stages in GitLab. So use stages to define stages that contain group of jobs. Use stage in a job to configure the job to run in a specific stage, or the order of items in stages define the execution order of jobs. So if you define the stage and tell the GitLab to execute the job in this particular stage first, and then later on it will go ahead in that way. So if you read here, jobs in the next stage run after the jobs from the previous stage complete successfully. So we have to tell GitLab that execute the deploy later on after the build has been completed, and we can do that using stages. Let me show you by editing the pipeline we have here. So I'm going to go to pipeline editor, or I can click on code option here, click on repository. Now click on the feature branch. So I will not push it or merge it to main unless my pipeline is passing in the feature branch. So I'll click on GitLab, click on edit option here, and then edit in pipeline editor. So now that we know, we can define the order of the jobs using stages. So let's put stages here. Inside this, I'm going to create two stages, one for build and one for deploy. So I'll say build underscore stage, and then deploy underscore stage. If you remember, GitLab already has these as the default pipeline stages. So if you don't define any stage, your job will be running in the test stage, and I'll show you that in a second. So now I've used two stages, build stage and deploy stage. So if you look here, this GitLab CI is invalid because build job chosen stage does not exist. Available stages are this. So once you define the stages, you also need to tell which job belong to what stage. So if I put build job in build stage, it will be executed first because build stage is first, and then there is deploy stage. So I'll put stage, and it belongs to the build stage. So I'll say build underscore stage. Similarly for deploy, I'm going to say deploy underscore stage, and once I do that, you will see this message will be gone. So I'll say stage here, and it belongs to deploy underscore stage. And now you can see it's validating, and now pipeline syntax is correct. Let's go ahead and commit the changes in the feature branch. Commit message is fine, so I'm going to click on commit changes, and this will initiate a new pipeline. So let's click on pipeline option here, and you will see jobs running. So let's click here, and there are two jobs with two stages. So build stage has a build job, deploy stage has deploy job. The build job is running, whereas deploy is paused, and it will run only when the build has been completed. So this is how you can use stages to define the execution order for the jobs. If you put the first job in the first stage, it will be executed first and then the later on. So this is how you can define, and I hope now you have clear idea of what stages are in GitLab CI/CD. So let's wait for this to be completed, and then we can go ahead with see if there are any issues and try to troubleshoot it. One thing that is One thing to notice here is every time a build is created, it's always using image Ruby, and we are creating an application that is Node.js. So instead of Ruby, we should be using Node.js so that we don't have to deliberately install npm or other options. Similarly, if I'm creating an application in Python, I should be using a Python image. So how can we change it? And I'll show you that very soon. Well, let's see if the build stage or the build job has passed. So okay, yeah. So it says job succeeded, build has been completed. Now if you look at the deploy will start running now because build has been completed. So let's wait for this to see if it completes or not. Alright, so after waiting for some time, we got an error saying job failed. And why is that? So job gave an error saying cannot find module express. So even though we defined the stages of build running before deploy, it's still giving us the same error. This is because two jobs do not share the information between each other. So the first job was the build job, which is going to install the dependencies for npm for express, and it is not sharing the node modules to deploy stage. This is why it is giving an error saying that the dependencies are not installed. So how can we solve this? So to transfer information from one job to another, or which can be dependencies, which can be reports, we use something known as artifacts in GitLab. So artifacts can be used to transfer information or dependencies or reports from one job to another. If you look at this example here, we are using artifacts for this job. So in this example, the job name PDF is calling this particular command, and it's creating a file which is stored in the artifacts under this name mycv.pdf. So similar to this, we are going to create artifact to store node modules which can be then transferred to the next stage, which is the deploy stage. And we can also download this artifact if we want to. So let's go ahead and edit our pipeline. So I'm going to go to repositories here and click on go to feature branch. In the feature branch, click on GitLab CI, edit, and let's edit this build stage to add an artifact which is going to pass on the node modules that has all the dependencies required for this app to run, so that we don't get the express error anymore. So I'm going to say artifacts, and you can see these are all the different options that you can have with artifacts. When should the artifact run, when should it expire, and also it should be tracked or not. So instead I'm going to remove all this as of now and just add a parameter which is going to be path. So paths define which file do you want to put in the artifact, or which file do you want to pass on to the next stage. So if you look here, the paths keyword determines which files to add to the job artifact. All paths to the files are relative to the repository where the job was created. So in this I want to add a file named as node_modules, because this is the file that has all the information and the dependencies required for the application to run in this deploy stage. Along with this, we also have a new file named as package-lock.json. If you remember, when we ran the command, we also got this file for package-lock.json. So these are the two files that I want to be passed to the deploy stage. Alright, let's go ahead and push this. So I'm going to say update artifacts in GitLab. So okay, once I commit the change, it's going to trigger the pipeline, and the pipeline is going to run again. And once you have artifacts, you can also download it. You can also check what is inside that file right from your pipeline dashboard. So if I show you here, let's go to the pipeline, and you have two stages again, the build stage and the deploy stage. Let's click on build stage here, and once this is going to be completed, you will see an option here to check what artifacts are provided, and if you can also browse them or download them in your local machine. So you can see now the pipeline has been successfully completed, and at this stage it says uploading artifacts for successful jobs. So it says uploading artifacts for successful job, and you can also see job artifact section here. You can keep them, you can download them, or you can also browse them. Let's click on browse option here, and you will be able to see two files, the node modules file and also the package.json file. This has all the things necessary for the application to run. So let's go back to the jobs and see if the deploy has been triggered or not. So you can see the deploy job is now running, and if everything is okay, it should be able to pass, or this job should also succeed. You can see now the deploy logs are here and the application is running successfully. It says application is listening at this point, and this job will continue to run unless we stop it, so we have to make sure that this job is running on the background so that the next job should not be skipped, because this is going to be in continuous loop and it will not stop unless we deliberately stop this pipeline. So this is how you can use artifacts. I hope now you have clear idea of how we use artifacts to transfer information from one job to another. You can go ahead and check out. You can go ahead and read about artifacts on the official documentation. Now let's see how we can troubleshoot this to run the job on the background rather than stuck in this particular loop. So I'm going to stop this pipeline now by clicking on cancel. And to execute this job in the background, let's edit the pipeline again. To add a script, let's edit the GitLab CI YAML file again to run the job in the background. So I'm going to go here in this, I'm going to edit, and I want the node app to be running in the background. So I can do this thing which says run the app and then put the standard input output into a null, which means it will be running in the background. Along with this, we have also seen the image used by GitLab for build is Ruby. So instead you can define what image do you want the job to be using, and you can do that by image tag. So you can define what image do you want a particular job to be used, and if you look at this documentation here, you can define an image that used all jobs and list of services that you want to use during runtime. So you can also define the image and also the services that being used. So instead of using Ruby image, let's define an image which should be Node, so that we don't have to install npm or we don't have to install NodeJS for this particular job. So I'll say image is going to be Node. Similarly, I'll also define this here, image is going to be Node, and so we don't need any of these now. So I'll comment this out, also comment this out. Similarly, I don't want npm to be installed because it already be installed in the Node app. Alright, let's go ahead and push this. So I'll say update image and click on commit changes. Now after this changes, we should be seeing that the image being used is Node, and also this is running in background without being stuck. So you can see the pipeline syntax is correct and the pipeline has also been triggered. So I'm going to click on this symbol here, which is going to show us the two stages, build stage and deploy stage. Let's click on it, and instead of Ruby image, we should be able to see that the image used is Node now. So this is how you can change the image in your CI/CD pipeline by defining the image tag. So this is the image tag, and you can define what image to be used instead of the default Ruby image. So now the pipeline has been succeeded for the build stage. Let's see the deploy stage as well, and you can see the deploy stage is also running and it's using the image Node. So now we have successfully learned how you can change the image for your jobs. One more thing to notice here, we are using runners here. We haven't learned about runners, so let's explore what are runners. And you can see now the pipeline has been successfully passed. So I can go ahead and merge this feature branch into my main branch. So now that the pipeline has been successfully passed, I am ready to merge this feature branch into my main branch. So I'll go to repository and I'm going to click on create merge request. Let's merge the feature branch into the main branch. So I can skip all this and delete the source branch after it is merged. Click on create merge request. This merge, I'm going to approve it, and the branch will be deleted once it is merged. So I'll click on merge option here, and once I do this, all the code from the feature branch will be go inside the main branch now. So it says merge has been done, and I'm going to click on main here, and you will be able to see all the code. Along with this, it also triggers a pipeline because now the pipeline is triggered for the main branch. So if you click here, you will be able to see the pipeline which is now triggered for main branch. You can see list of all pipelines here which has been executed till now. So the previous one was on feature branch, now this one is on main branch, and it's in build stage. The deploy stage is waiting because we have used stages in our CI/CD pipeline. So now, as you can see, the pipeline for the main branch has also passed, and this means we have successfully created a CI/CD pipeline which will automatically deploy our application for NodeJS app. So this is how you can create an application. I hope you have now understood what are jobs, what are stages, what are artifacts, how to change the image in your job, and a lot more. So moving on, let's learn about runners in GitLab. Okay, now let's discuss a very important topic in GitLab CI/CD, which are runners. So in this section, we are going to understand what are runners in GitLab CI/CD, different types of runners that GitLab provides us, and also how you can set up your own runners in GitLab. So if you look here in the code, when we run our CI/CD pipeline, it uses the runner that is provided by GitLab. So GitLab provides you with shared runners, but you can also use your own runner. For this particular job, this is the runner we are using. Let me show you all the different runners we have. So I'll go to settings. In CI/CD, you will see an option which are here runners. So runners are process that picks up and execute CI/CD jobs for GitLab. So it's an application that is used to run the process or execute a service in a job. So let's click on this, which will bring you the documentation about runners. So GitLab Runner. So GitLab Runner is an application that works with GitLab CI/CD to run jobs in the pipeline, and there are two types of runners: GitLab SaaS runners or shared runners, and self-managed runners that you can set up your own. Now if I click on expand option here, you will see the list of all the shared runners that we have, and right now there are available runners 78. These are all the different runners, and you can also see they have tags. So this is Windows shared runners, this is also Windows shared runner, this is blue shared GitLab org, blue shared GitLab org, and a lot more. Similarly, if you want to set up your own runner, you can click on these, or you can select this option, and very soon I'll show you how you can set up a runner. We will be setting up our own GitLab runner on Amazon EC2. So you can set this runner on Linux, on Mac Windows, on Mac OS, or Windows, or Docker, or Kubernetes, or AWS. One of the reasons of using these runners could be testing. Let's say you have a Windows application and you want to test it only on Windows GitLab Runner. So you can set up your runner on Windows rather than using the Linux one. So before we go ahead, let's just understand the different types. As I told you, there are shared runners and self-managed runner. So if you use GitLab, you can run CI/CD jobs on SaaS runners hosted by GitLab. These runners are managed by GitLab and fully integrated with gitlab.com. So by default, these runners are enabled for all projects, but you can disable them if you want to use your own. And alternatively, you can install GitLab Runner and register your own runners on gitlab.com. So if you look at this PPT here, there are two types of runners: the shared runner and specific runners that you can install on your own server, which can be Kubernetes, which can be Docker, which can be EC2 instances, or anything. Now how to use this: once you install this runner, you can use it for a particular job by adding tags. So I'll show you that in action very soon, but let's read about it more. So GitLab Runner can be installed on any platform where you build Go binaries, because this GitLab Runner is created in Golang. So you can run this on any operating system like Linux, Mac OS, Windows, FreeBSD, cloud provider, bare metal, your workstation, Docker, anywhere. And this GitLab Runner can test any programming language, which can be .NET, Java, Python, C, PHP, and others. So let's go ahead and set up our own GitLab Runner. For this, I already have an AWS EC2 instance created. So I'm going to go to my console and connect to my instance with SSH. Now let's go ahead and set up our own runner in GitLab CI CD. And to do this, I have an EC2 instance created in my AWS account. And I'm going to click on connect option to connect using SSH. Now to set up a GitLab runner, you need to go to settings in CICD, click on runners, and you need to click on these three dots. Now I'm going to click on show runner installation and registration instructions. You can optionally go ahead and also follow the documentation if you want to. So if you search for GitLab Runner installation, you will come across this documentation which will give you the steps to install GitLab Runner on your machine. So depending on your architecture type, if it is x86, AMD 64 or ARM 64, you can choose to set up accordingly. Similarly, the same settings are here as well. So if you click on show runner installations and registration instructions, you have an option to select what your architecture is. Here you have options for Linux, Mac OS, Windows, Docker, Kubernetes, AWS. I'm using AWS Amazon, so I can either choose to go with this, but Amazon Linux, I'm using Ubuntu, so this will also be fine. So Linux, AMD 64, 386, ARM or ARM 64. If you don't know what is your architecture type, you can simply run a command dpackage --print -architecture. Once you run this, you will get the architecture. So this is the AMD 64 and I'll be choosing this option here. Now I'll copy everything and create a script. So let's go here, type nano. Before I do anything, let's just run the command sudo apt update to update all the packages. So I'll run this and it will update all my packages. Now I'm going to copy all these commands and put them in a script and run that script. Similarly, you can also do the same. If you look here, these are the commands to set up on Ubuntu. So it's pretty much same. I can use any of these. I have tried setting up GitLab Runner using this as well as this. This is a bit easy and faster, so I'll show you this option now. So all the update has been done. Now I'm going to say nano and script -runner .sh. In this I'll paste all the commands, Control S, Control X. Let's give it execute permission. So chmod -x and script -runner.sh. Now I'm going to run sh script.runner.sh and this will start installing GitLab Runner for me. Once this is done, we can run the next command, which is to register the runner using this URL and using this token. So let's copy this and paste the command here. Alright, now it's asking you the instance URL. I want to use the same, so I'll press enter for this. Then it's asking for registration token. This is correct according to the command here, so I'll press enter again. I can add a description if I want to, so let's go add a description, cloud champ, or optionally you can keep the private IP if you want to. Next, you can add tags for runners. So tags are something which are required for a job to choose which runners to run the job on. If you see here in the tag section, these are tags. So tags are used to select a specific runner. CI tags are different from Git tags, and this is how you do it. For this, I'm going to add two tags here, server and EC2. Next, I can add a maintenance node if I want to. I don't want to add that, it's optional, so I'll press enter. Next, it's asking you for an executor. So there are different types of executor like Docker, Docker Windows, Shell, SSH, Docker Autoscaler, all these options. To better understand this, let's go to this slide again. And if you scroll down, you'll see the executors here. Okay, so these are all the common executors, which are Shell, Docker Machine, Docker, Kubernetes. If you want to run the commands as into a terminal, which is a bash or sh shell, you will be using Shell. Same for command prompt or PowerShell as well. And if you want to run the commands in a Docker machine, you'll be using this option. Similarly, if you want to execute inside a Docker image, you will be using this one. Same for Kubernetes, and there are other options like VirtualBox, Parallels, SSH. We are going to be running this in Shell, so terminal, so I'll put Shell here and press enter. Now the configuration has been saved in this particular file, and it says runner registered successfully. To confirm, I'm going to run the command sudo gitlab -runner, and status will tell me if it is running or not. So it says service is running, and if I come back to my GitLab repo and refresh this page, so let's go to runners. You will see a runner has been created, and it has a tag as CloudChamp. It has the name as CloudChamp, and these are the two tags we have given for our runner. Now let's go ahead and create a CI/CD pipeline which will now use our particular runner to execute the jobs. To test out the GitLab Runner that we have installed on our EC2 instance, I have a Flask application created here. So this is a Python code which uses Flask module and also OS module to create a simple application that showcases a message dash is a GitLab Pro, where name is a variable, and by default the value for the variable is John unless we pass another name. So it will show us John is a GitLab Pro, and we are going to use this application set up CI/CD pipeline which will be running on our own runner that we have set up on EC2 instance. So before I go ahead and commit this, let me show you how you will be running this Python application in your local machine in case you don't have any idea on how you can deploy or run a Python file. So I have a file already created. If I show you, this is my file which has the same code, and this file uses Flask module, also OS module. So if you don't have Flask installed, you will get an error. To install Flask, you just need to run the pip3 install Flask command, and you can see Flask is already installed for me, so it didn't took time to run the script. Now I'm going to run the command python3 and app.py. This is the command to run Python applications. So once I run this, you can see a Python app is running, and if I open this up, you will see John is a GitLab Pro, the message that we have defined here. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this in my repo. So add a new file, message is fine. I'm going to commit it in the main branch. Click on commit changes. Along with this, I'm also going to create a Docker file for this particular application and then set up CI/CD pipeline for it. So I'll go here in the code option. Let's click on repositories, and I'm going to create a new file for our Docker file. So let's click on new file here and name it Docker file. So Docker. So I'm using the image Python 3.8.0. The work directory is set to /app. I'm adding all the code from my current repo into /app, installing the Flask, and then providing environment variable as mark, and then running the command to start the Python or to run this Python app.py. Once I do this, I'm going to click on, let's change the message as add Docker file, and then click on commit changes option here. Now we have the application and its Docker file ready. We can go ahead with creating a CI/CD pipeline that runs on our own GitLab Runner. So now to create a CI/CD pipeline for this application, we are going to have we will now create a file. As we all know, we need to create a file with the name .gitlab-ci.yaml, which will hold all the configurations for a CI/CD pipeline. In this pipeline, I want to have two jobs, the build job and the deploy job. So I'll say build job first. In the build job, I will run the command to create the Docker image from the Docker file that we created right now. Along with the Docker image, I also want to see the version for the Docker. So I'll run the command docker version, which will display the version in the logs. Next, I'm going to run docker build -t to tag the image or to give the name, and I'll say Python app or pyapp, and the location for the Docker file is current, so I'll say dot here. This part or this job is going to now create an image and also display the version. Now if I want to run this using my own GitLab Runner, I also need to add the tags. So I'll say tags here, and for the tags we need to use the same tags that we have used while configuring our GitLab Runner. So I'll open this in a new tag just to check. As you can see, the tags are EC2 and server, so I'll be using the same such that GitLab will run this job on that particular runner which we have set up on our EC2 instance. So I'll use a tag which is EC2 and also server. Alright, so this is our build job. We also need to create a stage so that we can define that the build should be running first and then the deploy. So I'll create stages, and in this I'll create two stages, one for build, so I'll say build underscore stage, then deploy underscore stage, and I also need to define this here. So I'll say stage is going to be build underscore stage. Alright, similarly I'm going to create a new job which is deploy job. So let's create it, and name for the job is deploy. The stage belongs to deploy stage, and in the script I'm going to run the command to run the container, which is docker run command. So I'll say docker run -d to run this in detach mode in the background, -- name. For the container I'll say python container -p to add the port. So I want this to run on port 80, so I'll say port 80 mapping to 8080, and then the name of the application, name of the image, which is pyapp, so I'll say pyapp here. Alright, along with this I also need to add the tag similar to what I added here, because we also want this job to be running on the runner that we have associated REC2 with. Once I do this, I am going to commit this file, so I'll say add CICD file, and I'm going to click on commit changes option now. This will start triggering. You can see the CICD configuration is valid, and if I go to build, click on pipelines, you will see a pipeline has been initiated. It failed though. Let's click on this to see why it failed actually. So I'm going to click on build option here, and it failed because let's click on this link. Okay, we have got an information here which says to troubleshoot this error, check this thing, and a script section, comment it out and restart the pipeline. Okay, let's go and check this thing. So I'll copy, go to instance, do sudo nano and paste this. Once I do this, okay, this is the thing, and they want you to comment out, so I'll go ahead and comment this out, also this line and this line. Okay, let's go and check if our runner is running first. So it's running, and I'm going to rerun the pipeline. So I'll do this, which will execute the job again, and you can see it's running, but it failed again, saying docker command not found. Obviously it will not run because docker is not installed here, so I need to install docker before I actually go ahead and run the pipeline, because it is running in this particular runner which does not have docker installed. If I show you and I try to run docker version command, it will give me the same output, which is docker command is not found. So let's go and install. So let me install the docker first, and then I'll rerun the pipeline. So now docker is installed, and I can verify this by running docker -- version command. Alright, and you can also see there are no images right now in my machine. Once I run this, it should execute the pipeline and also show me an image, but we don't have GitLab Runner in Docker group, so it might give you an error. So right now you can see the runner we are using is CloudChamp, which means we have successfully registered our runner to be used by this particular job, and it has failed with the saying permission denied while trying to connect to Docker daemon. This is because we don't have GitLab Runner in Docker group, so we can do that by running sudo usermod -a G docker and then the user, which is GitLab -runner. Once I do this, let's restart the Docker service. So I'll say sudo service docker restart. Alright, with that done, let's try to rerun the pipeline again and see if we can get the job succeeded this time or not. Alright, so now it has started creating the image, and you can see there are 6 layers to this image, which means now we have successfully able to run the job using our CloudChamp runner. So I hope now you have an idea of how you can use your own custom runners, how you can use
your own runners instead of using shared runners. There are many benefits of using your own runners. As I said, testing is one of them. Second could be scaling. Maybe you have a big application that requires huge amount of compute, and then your shared runner is not capable to do it. Then you can have your own runner, which can be a Kubernetes cluster or it can be a large EC2 instance. Now let's see the deploy stage. And if you look at the deploy stage, deploy has passed and we have job succeeded message here. And you can also see the SHA message, which is for Docker run. If I go here in my EC2 instance and try to run Docker images command, you can see there's an image for Python app that we created, which was 59 seconds ago, and also Python because we used this in Docker file. If I do Docker PS, I will be able to see a container running which has the same ID as we see in the Docker run in the logs here. We can also test it out by just copying out this public IP and pasting it in the browser. You can see Mark is a GitLab Pro. So this is how you can use your own custom runners. I hope you have now an idea of what is a runner, how you can set up your own runners, and different types of runners that GitLab has. To use any of these runners, we know that we need to use tags. So now I hope you have an idea of what is runners, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Moving on, let's look at variables in CICD. So what are variables in GitLab CICD? If you are familiar with any programming language, let it be Python, JavaScript or anything, you might already know about what variables are. Variables are used to store values that you don't want to repeat again and again, and the value can be string, can be numbers, can be boolean, anything. Similar to that, GitLab also has variables. There are different types of variables GitLab has. You can define your own variables, or you can also use predefined variables that GitLab has. For example, you can check the list here on this particular link. GitLab provides you with all this predefined variables that you can use throughout your CI/CD pipeline. So if you want to get the author, you can get using CI/CD commit author. If you want to get the branch on where you're running the pipeline, you can use the CI commit branch. Similarly, message, reference name, all these different things. Let's try to run this and check if it actually works or not. And to do that, I'm going to quickly go ahead and create a repo for variable demo. Alright, in this I'm going to create a CI/CD file. So I'll save new file. Name of the file is gitlab-ci.yaml. Let's create a job named as demo. In this inside this, I'm going to run few scripts or commands. The first is going to be echo the job name. So if you want to get the job name in your log files, you can see the predefined variable for it. So this is the predefined variable ci_job_name. This will give you the name of the job. So once I put this, let's also try to check more of these. So let's try to get the job status, job state, job timeout, job token. Along with this, you can also see merge requests, page domains, pipeline ID, and lot more. So let's get the runner. So let's get the GitLab user ID here. Who is the user that is running this pipeline? So I'm going to paste this. Let's paste this and click on commit option below. Once I commit, this should initiate a pipeline, and the pipeline should show us the name of the job and also the username in the logs. So I'll go here, click on build, click on pipelines, and as you can see, a pipeline is in running state right now. Let's click on it and click on demo, the name of the job. You can see the pipeline is in running state right now. The logs are coming up. So these are predefined variables in GitLab that you can use for your CI/CD pipelines. You can see the logs came up, and this is the name of the job, which was demo. As you can see here, this is the name of the job. This is the GitLab user ID. If I show you, I can show you This is my user ID 913131167. So these are predefined variables in GitLab that you can use and get the information right from the GitLab rather than you remembering it or putting it manually. So this is one type of variable. Another is custom variable that you can add yourself. Let me also showcase you how you can use custom variables in GitLab CI/CD. To create a custom variable, you need to define the variables in the GitLab CI.yaml file. For example, let me show you here. So I'm going to remove all this here, and to define a variable in GitLab CI, you need to use the keyword which is variables here, and variables are key value pairs. So I'll say name equals to value. Alright, similarly you can also say message equals to please, and then I'm going to create a demo job here to display the variables and use it in our CI/CD job. So I'll say script, and in this script I want to echo a message that will be using this particular variable. So I'll say echo hey message subscribe to name. With that, now it says pipeline syntax is correct, so we can go ahead and click on commit changes. So defining a variable is very similar to what you do in any programming language. You have a key value pair. We are going to use the variable using a dollar symbol here. So now the pipeline is running, and if I click on it, you will hopefully see a message that has the values of these variables in the result. So let's wait for this to be executed. Alright, you can see it has been executed and it says, hey, please subscribe to CloudChamp. So yeah, this is how you can use custom variables. Similar to this, if you look at the documentation, variables can be of two types. Global variables, if you're using a custom variable, variables are of two types. You can define them globally or through in a job. So this is a global variable that is defined outside a job, whereas this is a job variable that is defined inside a job, and it will override whatever is defined in a global one. Another type of variable in GitLab CI is secret variables that you can find here in settings, CI/CD and variable section. To demonstrate this, I'm going to use the application, Docker application. To demonstrate this, I'm going to use the Python application that we created Docker file for, and I'll be adding my Docker username and Docker password in this variable section and push the image to Docker Hub. So you can see these variables are used to store information like password, secret keys that you can use in job scripts. So if anytime you want to use AWS access keys or your username or your passwords that you don't want to expose in the script, you can put them here in CI/CD variables. So let's create a variable for our Docker Hub username. So I'll name this as Docker Hub underscore username, and my username is Nasi101. Similar to this, I'm going to click on add variable, but before I add it, let me explain you this. So protect variables are variables that you can use with protected branch or protected tags in GitLab. Then you have masked variables. So if anytime you don't want to expose your value in the logs, you can use mask variable option here. So I'm going to uncheck this because we don't have the main branch as protected and I want this to run. So I'm going to uncheck this. The extended variable, which means this is a variable that whatever starts with $. So I'm going to click on add variable option here. Similar to this, I'm also going to add my Docker Hub token. So let's go to Docker Hub here and create a token for this. So I'm going to click on account settings, click on security and create a token for myself. So let's say GitLab underscore temp and click on generate option. And this is the token that I want to use. So I'm going to copy this and go back to my variable section, click on add variable. I'll say Docker underscore token and put the value here. Once I put the value, now I can run the command. I can run the command and use the variables instead of using the username and password. Let's try to log in using Docker login and also Docker push to push the image here in our Docker Hub. So right now, if I show you, I don't have any image with the name py-app here, and after I push it through my CI/CD, I should be able to see it. So let's go here in our code repository and come back to our gitlab-ci.yaml file. In this I'm going to edit it with edit in pipeline editor. First, after I run this, I'm going to run the command docker login -u and then the name of the variable, which is docker underscore username -p and then docker underscore token. Alright, if you look at this command here, docker run -d -name python container -p, this is using a name, and if I try to rerun it, it will give me an error saying that the name already exists. So one way is to remove the name and let docker give you a random name, or else we can add a command to delete this container before running it again. So I'll say docker rm python container. Before I stop it, before I remove it, I need to stop it first. So I'll say docker stop python container and this. Alright, so once I run this command, it should give me a message saying docker login succeeded if the username and password is correct. Once I do this, I'm also going to tag the image with the name docker tag pyapp, the name of the here, to the name. I'm going to tag this image pyapp with the name docker underscore username / pyapp so that I can push it, and I'll say docker push and then copying this thing here. Alright, now this should work, and if I check pipeline syntax is correct, I'm going to click on commit changes option here, and let's see if we get an error or this gives us the response. So we're using secret variables in our pipeline for our Docker Hub username and also for our Docker Hub token. So let's go here, and you can see the build stage has been passed. We are not using any variables there, so no need to worry about that. Let's go to deploy stage and see if the deploy is showing using the variable or not. So if you look at this, it says cannot perform an interactive login from a non-TTY device. After checking, I understood that I have used the wrong name. So I've used Docker Hub username, and in here I'm using Docker username just. So to make it easy, just name it as username and password rather than adding Docker or Docker Hub. You can see it's Docker Hub username, but in the CICD file I used that, so I'll just name it username for now and click on edit variable. Similarly, I'll do the same for Docker token as well. Instead of Docker underscore token, I'll just make it token. Alright, let's click on edit variable and let's go back to our pipeline. Also change it there in the pipeline. So I'll go to repository, go to Gitlab CI, edited pipeline editor, and instead of Docker and Docker Hub, I'll just make it username and password, username and token. So username and token. Similarly here I'll use username and username here. Okay, let's change it and click on commit change, which will rerun our pipeline, and hopefully it should pass, and we should be able to see the pipeline successfully passed. So this is secret variable. Anytime you want to use any of your passwords or your access keys or your tokens, make sure you use secret variables rather than hard coding them in your CI/CD pipeline. Once that being said, let's go and check our deploy job here. So I'm going to go to deploy job. You can see it's running the command to stop the container and remove it, and it says job succeeded. You can see login has also been succeeded and it has also pushed it. So let's go to our Docker Hub and refresh. We should be able to see an image being pushed with the name as pyapp. So you can see an image is pushed with the name as pyapp. Similar to secret variables, another kind of things or another important thing that you need to know are keywords in GitLab. Similar to variables in GitLab, you also need to know some of the important keywords in GitLab that will help you create better CI/CD pipelines. So these are all the different keywords which are default include stages, Along with this, you have spec, after script, allow failures, artifacts, and lot more. So to give you some context, we use after script and before script for things that you want to do before the deployment. So before script is used to define a command that should be run before each job, including deploy jobs, but after the restoration of any artifacts. Similarly, after script is used to define the command that will be running after each job, including the failed ones. So you can use these keywords to run the things before or after a script. Along with this, you also have another one which is only and except. So if you define that they only run on this particular branch, or only run on main branch, or run it everywhere except the main branch, these are some of the keywords that will help you enhance your CI/CD pipeline, and you can check out all of them in this particular dashboard or on this particular documentation. Similar to this, there are a few more things that I want to explain you before we complete this course. Now if you look here, GitLabs provide you with many other things. If you click on analyze option here, you can see CICD Analytics of how much time your pipeline has been failed, what is the success ratio, and you can also change it depending on the duration. So for last week, last month, last year, and you can also see the graph here. Along with this, GitLab gives you an option to check if your CI/CD configuration is correct or not right inside the editor, but you also have an option named as CI Lint, which will be named as CI Lint here, to check your syntax if everything is correct regarding your GitLab CI. If there are any issues, GitLab CI will let you know. To give you an example, let's go and copy one of the GitLab CI YAML files here. So I'll copy this and paste it in the CI Lint option here and click on validate, and this will give you if syntax is correct or not and all the other things. Let's try to make a change and try to change something. So instead of this, I'll click on validate option, and it give you an error saying syntax is incorrect, CI configuration validated. So these are some of the things. Apart from this, there are a few more options that you need to know in case you're using GitLab in your production environment. So if you want to deploy your applications on different environments, let's say staging or production or development, you can use environment section here, and you can create environments either through UI, or you can also define it right in your CI/CD pipeline. So you can use production environment and deploy it on a particular EC2 or particular server, and then use staging, which will be deployed on another server, defining the external URL here. Along with this, there are a few more things like pipeline scheduling and timeouts. So if you, by default, whenever you run a pipeline, it will run for 1 hour. It has a 1 hour timeout. So let me show you. By default, whenever you run a pipeline, it will be running unless you stop it or unless 1 hour timeout has been completed. So if you look here, for this particular job, the timeout has been set to 1 hour by default, but this can be changed if you want to change it in the CI/CD section. So you can always change the timeout here. Instead of 1 hour, you can make it 10 hour or anything you want if your jobs are taking longer and it is failing due to timeout issue. Next, you can also schedule your pipelines based on cron jobs. If you want the pipeline to be running every 12 o'clock in the afternoon or anything you like, so you can just click on pipeline schedule, click on create a pipeline schedule option here, and define the cron job. So this way you can set up a pipeline. So let's say my important pipeline that I want to run every day at 5 o'clock, and then I can select time zone. So I'm in India, so I'll say IST here, or India, let's see this one, even though this is not the Indian time, and I can choose to put a variable if my CICD file has a variable, and click on create pipeline schedule, and this will create a pipeline schedule and also tell me when will the next CICD pipeline run. So it will run in next 14 hours. So this way you can set up a pipeline schedule. And we have seen a lot, we have pretty much covered everything about GitLab. If you have any questions about anything in this, please let me know. Also let me know if you want a full-fledged project similar to what we did in Netflix using Jenkins. We can also create something like that using GitLab. If you have that request, let me know in the comment section. I hope this video was helpful. Finally, this is the end of our GitLab CICD course. I hope this course was informative. If you have any questions, any doubt, do let me know in the comment section. Also, let me know if you want a project where we set up CI/CD pipeline using GitLab, similar to what we did for Netflix project. I hope this video was informative. If you found this video helpful, please like this video and subscribe to CloudChamp. Thank you and have a good day.